This is the story of a man named Abraham. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bible Project. In this episode, we're going to explore the covenant between God and Abraham. But before we do that, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more free Bible videos. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to grab your free one-page Bible reading plan at our website. As we walk through the life of Abraham, we see multiple covenants being made between God and humanity. Let's get into it. 1. God's call to Abraham. The story begins with God calling Abram to leave his home, country, and family, and to go to a land that God will show him. God makes an amazing promise in return. He tells Abram that he will make him into a great nation, that he will bless him and make his name great. And through his offspring, every family on earth will be blessed. Abraham trusted God and followed him. This was a huge step of faith because he didn't know where this journey would lead or what the future held. But he chose to follow God anyway. 2. God's promises to Abraham. Later in the narrative, while Abraham was still struggling to believe God's promise that he would have many descendants, God reaffirmed his promises. God promised him the land of Canaan for his descendants to live in. God also promised Abraham countless descendants. When Abraham looked up at the stars, God said to him, "That is how numerous your offspring will be." God promised to protect Abraham and bless him greatly, and those who tried to harm him would end up being harmed themselves. 3. The covenant ceremony. To formalize this agreement, God told Abraham to take some animals and set them up as a burnt offering. Then he took the two halves of the carcass, put them opposite each other, and walked between them. This was a symbolic representation of the covenant. As Abraham walked between the pieces of the animal, it demonstrated that the terms of the agreement applied to him as well as God. Once the offering was complete, Abraham fell into a deep sleep. Then God's presence appeared as a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch that passed between the pieces of meat. This vision showed Abraham that the covenant they had made was unconditional. It wasn't dependent on anything that Abraham could do. Instead, it was based on God's own faithfulness. 4. The covenant of circumcision. A little later, God decided to confirm his covenant with Abraham even further. He told Abraham to circumcise every male in his family as a physical sign that they were part of the covenant. He changed Abram's name to Abraham, which means father of many nations. He did this because through Abraham's offspring, God planned to bless all the families of the world. The physical act of circumcision reminded Abraham and his descendants that they belonged to God and that they were part of a special agreement with him. As part of this covenant, God promised Abraham many descendants and many nations would come from his line. Some of these descendants would become kings. He also promised that Sarah, who had been unable to have children, would give birth to a son named Isaac. Through Isaac, the covenant would continue. Abraham was overjoyed when Isaac was born because it was a fulfillment of God's promise. 5. Key lessons from Abraham's covenant. There are several important lessons we can learn from Abraham's covenant with God. First, we see that Abraham's faith in God's promises was credited to him as righteousness. He believed that God would fulfill his promises even when they seemed impossible. Second, we see that God is faithful. He always keeps his promises. Even when Abraham doubted God's ability to fulfill his promises, God proved to him that he was able to do so. Third, we see that Abraham was obedient. He obeyed God's call to leave his home and follow him. This showed that he trusted God and believed in his promises. Fourth, the covenant points to Christ. Through Abraham's seed, Jesus came into the world to bless all nations. The Old Testament teaches that the Messiah would come from Abraham's line, and Jesus is the Messiah. He is the promised descendant of Abraham who came to save his people and all who believe in him. 6. Application for believers today. The covenant between God and Abraham has important implications for believers today. First, God's promises are sure. He is a covenant-keeping God who will fulfill His words. When God makes a promise, we can trust that He will keep it. Second, faith and obedience unlock God's blessings. Abraham's faith and obedience allowed him to receive God's promises. Similarly, when we believe in God's promises and obey His commands, we position ourselves to receive His blessings. Third, we are spiritual descendants of Abraham. Through faith in Jesus Christ, we become part of Abraham's family. The New Testament teaches that all who believe in Jesus are children of Abraham. Finally, God's covenant reveals His desire to bless, guide, and use us for His purposes. Just as He chose Abraham to be part of His covenant, He chooses us to be His children and to fulfill His mission in the world. When we understand and embrace our place in God's covenant, we can experience His blessings, guidance, and strength as we seek to fulfill His purposes. So there you have it, a summary of the covenant between God and Abraham. We hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. And be sure to grab your free one-page Bible reading plan at our website. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. If you want to dig deeper into the message, here are some questions to think about. What does it mean to be a child of Abraham? How does the covenant between God and Abraham point to Jesus Christ? How can we apply the lessons from Abraham's covenant to our lives today? If you enjoyed this video, you might also want to check out our other videos on topics such as the fall of man, the flood, and the Tower of Babel. You can find links to those videos below. Thanks for watching.